So today's quick little video is about invisible thread. I sent y'all some invisible thread in the kits that I made, and I noted that there was a significant difference between the cheap stuff and the better quality stuff. But I've had a few questions from other people who were very frustrated with trying to work with invisible thread, not with the kit, but just in general. And I realized that maybe I should talk a little bit about the tricks involved with using it and how the quality can make a big difference. So this is the junky stuff I talked about before, the Gutermann stuff. This stuff is like $2, and this is like getting into fishing line territory. Like, it's very coarse, and it's thicker, and it's very curly, and it just, when you're working with it, I find that if you're doing fine loops, like we're using invisible thread to stitch down delicate things for like beads and sequins and stuff, and this doesn't make clean loops. It doesn't sit flat, it tends to stand up, which, if we want our work to be very flush to our ground fabric, is going to be a problem because they'll move around more because this doesn't pull very tight. So that's why I don't recommend this kind at all. I find it very, very frustrating. And yes, it's $2, but it's sort of worth $2. So if you're working on a project and you're using invisible thread and you think that invisible thread sucks because you're using this kind, then I promise you there are better options for you, and you might as well just forget that kind. It's frustrating and annoying. And to my delighted surprise, not one of you wanted it for your kit. All of you opted for the better quality. This I tend to use a lot simply because I go through so much of it. This one's decent. This is Wonder Invisible Thread. There's 1,500 yards on this, and I've gone through like 4 of these in my bridal career. That's how much hand sewing I do with invisible thread. This is mostly on the bodice though, like me actually stitching the dress on the form. Tamboring with this is extremely frustrating. It's possible, but it's not very fun. It can be, I might try it a little bit more. I want to get one of those magnifying lit up things for working so that I can see better. But yeah, in general, I try not to tambour with this, although this can go in the machine. This is a good, I don't think I would use this in a sewing machine. I think that it would be too delicate and it would pull and it would cause problems. But if you wanted to try, I've used this, wound this on my bobbin and used this in both my industrial and my domestic sewing machine. And it's a good enough gauge thread to work well for that. You have to be really careful with your tension. If your tension isn't adjusted properly, you're going to pull on the top or bottom and things could look very puckery. But just mess around with some tests and you should be able to get this to lay pretty flat and look good. An instance where I would use this in the machine would be if I were doing lace applique on the edge of a veil, but I didn't have the budget to hand sew the whole thing. I would lay it out really carefully with pins and then very slowly stitch around the edges of the lace onto the illusion or the veil fabric with this, and then you wouldn't really be able to see any of the stitches. And if you're careful enough, it won't pucker, and then you can press it and it will just look like all of it's been hand stitched on. So that's a good cheat if you need to make a veil that looks like it's got a hand stitched lace edging, but you don't have the money or the time to actually do that. Okay, this doesn't have any label on it, but it's very similar to this. So this is the stuff that I put in the kits. I got it from a local shop that's here, and I like it a lot. It's very delicate. It's really fine. It's so different from the Gutermann. Like, I don't even know if you can see in the video. Here I am talking about invisible threads in a video. But like, if I can, you can see there's quite a huge difference in the gauge of these. I'm trying to see my hands in this video, but like one of them is significantly finer than the other one. But even still, this can be tricky to use because when it comes off of the spool, it's got that curl in it. So one of the things I wanted to show you on how to get rid of that curl, because the curl can make things a little bit more difficult. I'm just gonna cut a little bit off here. And then you hold it in your hand and like pulling so that you're not quite stretching it, but there is like a tension to it. Just pull the entire length through your fingers like that before you thread it through your needle. And that straightens it out. And that causes a lot less tangling and a lot less irritation while you're hand sewing with this stuff. So that's my big trick. Use good quality invisible thread, and you do that. If you do that pulling thing very slowly and steadily before you thread your needle, then it will be a lot easier to work with. Okay? See you next time, kids.